Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I am ToyBox, and in this video I'll be going over, or rather discussing, what a furry is. You know, there's me, a cute furry. But the basic explanation of what a furry is that they are people who dress up in anthropomorphic animal suits, or sometimes feral suits, who go around and just be weird and cringe, and put smiles on people's faces just because it can, and because it's fun. But to go into further analysis of what a furry is, I'll start from the very beginning, the first furry convention. The first FurryCon was named Conference Zero, and was held at the Holiday Inn Bristol Plaza in Costa Mesa, California during 1989. Though furries were a thing before Conference Zero, obviously. That's, we couldn't have Conference Zero without furries being a thing. They have been around since the early to mid 1980s, however the term furry didn't exactly exist until 1983. Now, with that brief history out of the way, let's get back into the main topic at hand. What are furries? So, as I stated in the beginning of the video, a furry is someone who dresses up in a furry costume, otherwise known as a fursuit, and goes around just being weird and making other people smile. The ideas for fursuits come from what is known as a fursona. Now, a fursona is basically an OC of an anthropomorphic character with unrealistic colors, patterns, etc. Basically like a fantasy character that you make, and it can just be anything to your liking. Like, if you want it to have 7 wings, it can have 7 wings. If you want it to have, 10 eyes or something like that, then it can have 10 eyes. They can even be feral if you wish. They don't have to be anthropomorphic, though most furries' fursonas are anthropomorphic. Fursonas often come in, a variety of species. Some even include dinosaurs. There's an octopus fursona, which is just super cute and just super cool. It doesn't have to be, furry animals. It can just be, like I said, an octopus or, dragons, dinosaurs, etc. Fursonas often can be used in roleplay or as inspiration for a future fursuit, if you wish to get one. But do keep in mind that fursuits are super expensive. I'm talking up in the thousands of dollars. It's a lot, man. Now, when the image of a furry comes to mind, I'm sure you all think of someone in a full suit, like Majira or Beta, Crash, etc. However, this is not always the case. You can find furries who, dress up in only ears, only tail, only paws, you get the idea, or a combination of the two, or more. However, you do not have to have a full suit or a suit at all to be considered a furry, just as long as you're in the fandom, making art, or just identify as a furry. Then, that's that. You don't have to have a suit. Yeah, you might feel overdressed or underdressed when you go to a convention, if you ever do. But the point of going to the convention is just to meet new people and just have fun, and it's a judgment-free zone, so you'll be fine. About the fandom. Now, to start this segment off with a quote from First Science, which will be linked in the description, along with other links that I used to do research for this video. The furry fandom is an inclusive term that describes a community of furries that span online, local, and international settings. The furry fandom is global, with hundreds of local groups existing worldwide and dozens of conventions held annually. With that said, it is not uncommon to come across furries that identify as members of the LGBTQ+ community, or identify as something or someone else. For example, a small subset of furries, otherwise known as Therians, believe that they are, quote, spiritually connected to animals or feel less than 100% human. They believe they are an animal trapped inside a human's body or were an animal in a former life. On the other paw, there exists what we know as otherkin. Otherkin who, like Therians, feel spiritually connected to a non-human species, though these species extend into mythical creatures, mythical species like dragons, griffins, minotaurs, etc. However, it should be taken into account that Therians and otherkin only make up about 20% of the furry fandom, according to Fur Science, who is a pretty trustworthy website. especially if you're doing furry research, because it's what they specialize in, hence the name Fur Science. That's just where I got a lot of this information, but like I said, there are other links in the description that I got my research from, so hopefully I can trust those ones too. Now, when it comes to LGBT members in the furry community, only 1/3 of the furry community identifies as heterosexual. In fact, furries are about 5 times more likely to identify as homosexual than that of the general population. 84% of furries identify as male, 13 as female, and 2.5 identify as trans. Furry stereotypes. A study conducted by Fur Science found that compared to a control group, furries were significantly more likely to have a history of being physically and or verbally bullied during adolescence. This is furries at 61.7% and the control group at 37.1%, which is just, it's awful. It's terrible. Another one of their studies indicated that 65% of furries say that they have told almost no one in their family about their furry interests, and approximately 70% say that they have told almost no one they see in their day-to-day life, e.g. like work, school, friends, etc. Now, it should be noted that being a furry is not socially acceptable by a lot of people. This means that you would not be in the wrong to expect some backlash from people who view furries as such. The more strongly someone identifies as a furry, the more likely they are to feel treated worse by society, which unfortunately does have some truth to it. Furries who go to therapy for depression or other mental illnesses report that they were driven away from their therapist because their therapist was more focused on them being a furry than their actual depression or other mental illness. Obviously, this does not apply to all therapists. There are people out there who are willing to focus on the bigger picture and do their best to help. There's always help out there for people. There's always help out there for you. For others, it is easier to find. For others, it's harder. But there will always be help out there. You just have to be open about wanting to get help and not just shut in and keep all that to yourself. That's not a healthy way of doing anything. Trust me, I would know. How being a furry helps. Being in the fandom does not mean that you are alone or that there's nobody there to help you. There are tons and tons of furries all over the world who are like-minded and happy to put a smile on other people's faces. It is really good to interact with other furries, or at least like other like-minded people who you feel you can easily connect with and who you feel you can go to when times turn rough. However, interacting with other furries does not mean that you will suddenly become immune to backlash and abuse hurled by other people. You know, people who find furries socially unacceptable. A lot of people view furry as a fetish that makes up the whole community, or at least half of it or more. Though, if possible, do try to ignore these people. They're not worth their breath, they're not worth any energy. Just focus on yourself and just do what makes you happy. Now, most furries put up a front or pretend to be someone that they're not, like, putting on, basically being their fursona, which basically their fursona is supposed to be a better version of themselves or someone who they wish to be. For most furries, this actually boosts their self-esteem since they force themselves out of their comfort zone in order to interact with others and make others happy. Though, Fur Science is still testing to see if spending more time as your idealized persona leads to more positive changes in a furry's own personality. For me, it definitely has helped. It makes me, feel more social, and it makes me just feel so much happier because I make people smile. Obviously, I've dealt with people who are just like, ew, a furry, gross, or, stuff like that. But that doesn't really, I don't let that hold me back, and neither should you. Because you just do what makes you happy, and that's really long and short of it. Just do what makes you happy. Don't let other people get in your way. Furries and fantasy. Furries like to engage in different forms of fantasy for healthy and beneficial reasons. This includes inspiring creativity, social interaction, and recreation. Like, sometimes I'll use... I've been with furries who basically, incorporate their own persona in D&D, and for them it just makes it, so much more exciting for, everyone involved. It's so much fun. Conclusion. being a furry definitely comes with its pros and cons. However, getting out there and having fun, being social with other furries and other like-minded people, just will make your experience so much better for yourself and others. It's awesome. Just make sure that you do respect other people's boundaries because, just because you want to get out there and have fun and you think this is okay does not mean other people do, but just as long as you're respecting other people's boundaries, just get out there and just have as much fun as you can. That's really what this is about. So, as I said in the beginning of this video, I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.